The Backdoor GAA Podcast for 2023 is now brought to you by Steede Motor Group. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, visit steedemotorgroup.ie. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.
So delighted now to be joined by former Galway senior footballers Declan Meehan and Joe Bergin to look back on Galway's narrow victory over Armagh at the weekend and look ahead to round 7 this weekend against Kerry in a repeat of the All-Ireland final. Declan, coming to you first, what are you currently making of watching modern football?
I have to say I've been impressed with them throughout the league. They've been competitive throughout. Like every game they were in, they could have won every game effectively. Like they lost one narrowly to Roscommon, which was disappointing, and then they drew on 2 occasions with Donegal and Mayo. Both games they could have won. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster really at the start, but they're really grinding out results, and I was very impressed with the second half performance in Armagh.
Joe, just with that, in Armagh the last day, I suppose the most impressive thing really is just to dig out a result like that, because first half, like, things really weren't going to plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's where this team has kind of evolved to over the last year or two. You know, they've built this confidence and they're able to dig out results. They're able to get the win. You know, so winning is a habit. And yeah, you look back at that game last weekend in Armagh. Obviously, big home crowd. Things not going great from the first half, but I suppose they were against a very strong wind. Armagh have, to a certain degree, a defensive setup, but there was a lot of work on the ball over and back, hard to watch, no doubt. And I know from talking to a few people that were up there saying it wasn't the most exciting game in the world, but Galway managed it, went in 4 points down at half time, and then turned it around, used the ball better, started moving the ball quicker through the lines, and turned that 4-point deficit into a victory, which just goes to show where this team is, where they're gone to now, and still a lot of players to come back. And I think Paul, you could see it from their reaction after the game. It meant a lot to the team and the management. So they have confidence. They're second in the league now, and big game on Sunday again. So overall, I think they're in really good shape.
Joe, what do we do in the first half? Because it almost seemed like, I think more in the second half, that we had runners from all angles, the ball was being moved quicker. Like, did we play into Armagh's hands a bit in that opening half?
Possibly to a certain degree. We did, and Armagh kind of probably got out of the blocks a bit quicker, but obviously maybe conditions. Now, I wasn't in Armagh last weekend, but conditions, particularly in the first half, I know there was a big shower of rain coming close to half time, which probably kind of meant the wind died down a bit. But in that first half, it did seem like there was a strong wind, so the guys were carrying the ball a lot more. It was a lot more lateral, and the way Armagh was set up, we were finding it very hard to break those lines. But I suppose in the second half, we had to go after the game. We were 4 points down. I suppose we got the kick passers on the ball, the John Daly's, the Paul Conroys. They were kicking the ball a lot more through the lines. We were finding marks inside, like Tom O'Culhan, who came on, became a good focal point inside. He got a nice mark, etc. So the game opened up, and generally speaking, in second half of matches anyway, it generally opened up to a certain degree anyway, and that suits Galway, because we've got I suppose, looking at some of the games we've played, like, we've got some great runners on the ball, the likes of Dylan McHughes, etc., can carry the ball very, very well. Killy McDade, he wasn't playing the last day, but then we've got some very good kick passers, as I said, the likes of Conroy, the likes of John Daly, who can really open up defences with a kick pass. And I think that's the balance that we have, and I think that's what we brought to the game, particularly in the second half, the last day, which opened up Armagh. We got good scores in the back of that. And I think the other side of it is, we've got the players to kick ball from distance, to kick points from distance as well. You know, we don't always have to try and go through that blanket defence or whatever the case may be. Like even Johnny Heaney, for example, got 2 great points, you know, in both halves to kickstart us, you know, from distance, and Paul Conroy and the likes of that. So there's plenty in the arsenal there in relation to Galway, in relation to how they play and how they can adapt, etc. You know.
Declan, particularly the last day, even before the game, RT were kind of putting the question that Galway are obviously down a few backs here. Keane Hernan comes in, Sean Fitzgerald come in for the first league start. I think it was Johnny McGrath's second league start as well. Like that's really impressive because they're all young guys. Like none of them are older than 22, 23.
Yeah, you're dead right, Paul. It is usually impressive when you think we lose Liam Silk and from last year's setup, and they're just a few more defenders not coming to my head, but Kieran as well. So they're the new guys in are of a type, and Joe touched on it there, but the confidence thing is huge, and it's one of the hallmarks of Porrick's play as a player, that he had ultimate confidence, and it's great to see that it seems to be rubbing off on his squad, like not just the players but the entire squad, and it's a good indicator for the future that these lads come in and they're physically conditioned and they're ready for action. A bit like, really, I suppose, if you look over the border to Mayo, a bit like the Mayo guys, you know, they have a conveyor belt as well. But look at, I think Porrick will be very happy with the way these new guys are settling into the job, and like, as well as that, because we were missing a few high profile guys earlier on in the year, like Damien and Shane. The likes of Johnny Heaney and has stepped up and took on the mantle of responsibility, and it's been a good aspect as well of the league.
Declan, just there when you're talking about the team kind of like brushing off Porrick's leadership, is there a particular moment when Porrick's playing with you during your career and you're like, Jesus, this lad could have it as a manager?
Yeah, well, like, Porrick was a very strong character. I played in school with Porrick. He was a captain of the Jarlath's team, so even as a young lad, he had great leadership abilities, and like that, he just ultimate confidence in himself, and he was a leader to bring lads with him as well. So, like, Joey will testify to this. There was a while there when he was playing, we reckoned he was managing as well, because he was such a strong figure that he had a good influence for positive. So look, he was a natural leader, and you know, everyone has their own style, and I think Porrick has put his own stamp on things now. But it's year 4, so I suppose we'll be looking for even another step forward from last year. But look, they're going in the right direction, and it's going to be an exciting year in 2023, I think.
Just with that, Joe, there, when Declan talks about Porrick, even the last day after the interview, like, he came out and he said, by no means that was a good game of football. Like, it's just the way modern football has gone, and that's what you seem to get with him as a manager: honesty, and I presume it was no different as a player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He can be quite blunt when he wants to be, but no, he'll say it as it is. That's kind of the character that he is, to be fair. And you know, I suppose it's a lot easier to say, yeah, that wasn't a great game of football when you win, than saying it when you lose, you know. So, but don't be under any illusion. Like, they were very happy coming down the road last weekend after winning that game, you know. So, I suppose you look back at our careers, you know, when I came in the kind of 1999, the early noughties, you know, I was lucky to be part of a very strong team at the time, and we had that element of confidence and knowing how to get over the line and win games. And later in my career, then I found, you know, that went away, and we lacked confidence. We were losing games more often, etc. This team seems to be going to that place now where they're able to get over the line. They know what 10 minutes to go in a game, you know, they can see it through, and that's what Porrick has been building, and that's what I think he's been building, particularly in the last two odd years, you know. So yeah, win ugly, win pretty, it won't matter to them. To be honest, it's all about getting the results, and they won't be apologising for that.
Yeah, particularly the last day as well, Declan. Like there was our first point we registered after 25 minutes, and there was probably still a bit of Galway faithful getting on the back there, because like we were struggling for scores in that opening half, as we talked about. Now, Robert Finnerty coming on at halftime, that definitely made a huge difference.
Yeah, you're right. It's great to have him back, and he seems to be back to his best form, which is great to see. And look, he's not alone. He's getting help, as Joey said. I wouldn't. For some reason, I wasn't panicked. I do think the wind was a factor on that evening, and like, it wasn't as if that we weren't getting up the field. It's just that we weren't converting. So with Rob coming in, it gave us a focal point, and just someone that sometimes it just takes one scorer to get things ticking and get the confidence flowing again. So like that's there for Galway. We can have quiet periods, but then you can have with any team, then you can have 5 or 10 minutes where you could fire over 4 or 5 points or get in for a goal. So look, I wouldn't have been too worried the way that first half was going. But look, it's I suppose different opposition will be different. If you're against a Kerry or a Mayo and you're under the pressure like that for 25 minutes, it might be out of sight. But thankfully, it wasn't the case.
With that, Declan, have we improved from a defensive perspective? Because if you look the last day, Aidan Nugent obviously gets that point late on in the half, but then like we only concede 1 free early on that second half, and against Monaghan as well, a lot of Monaghan scores there from distance. It definitely seems to be something that this side have improved on.
Yeah, big time. I was just looking at the league table there, at the permutations and that, and like we've one of the lowest scoring rates, but also we've conceded by far the less of any team in Division 1. So I suppose that's good. That's a good indicator. I think previous league campaigns we were scoring more but conceding more. So look, it's a good indication of things going when you consider we have, you know, some of our big shooters like Damien and Comer and Shane Walsh missing for the most of the league campaign. So I think they'll be quietly happy with the defensive play. Like as Kieran Malloy's coming back now as well. So look, it'll only be getting stronger. We hope.
Yeah, and you throw home Kelly as well, who's missing the last day, and Neil Mulcahy back into that. It'll only strengthen things as well. Joe, probably one of our most impressive players throughout this league campaign to date has to be Cathal Sweeney. He's really stepping up to the fore. It seems to be playing that kind of 15 Roman role, kind of coming out, really being a transition player, probably similar to the likes of Johnny Heaney.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Big addition. And as well, yeah, he's kind of playing that role where I think Tommy Joyce used to play for us many years ago, where he's kind of 15, but he goes out the pitch and gets on ball. You know, he's a link man, but he seems to have a huge engine in him. He's up and down the pitch. He's clocking big miles, and what I like about him is I feel like he's developing more and more with each game. He's gaining more and more confidence. I think, you know, look back to that. I think he came on in the Mayo game and maybe gave away a ball at a very pivotal time. But I think he's gaining composure and more confidence as he goes through the various games. So he's really come to the fore, I think, and adding another dimension to the game. But it's going back to that thing. Not just Carl, like you look at John Maher, who has come in the last game or two as well. I think even Porrick has pointed him out for some praise. Like he's a big guy, like he's very athletic, another big presence around that middle third of the field. So that's something we didn't have last year. You know, Peter Cook is back involved, obviously suspended at the moment. Killy McDade has to come back into the team. So you look at it, and I suppose I was delighted to see Shane taking a break and going away, and I'm sure PJ and the management team weren't best pleased, but I think in the long term it was good, and he's back now, he's getting game time, and signs are, and what we're hearing is Damien Comer's not too far away too, so we have far more strength and depth, and it's the likes of the John Mahers, it's the likes of the Peter Cooks, it's the likes of the Carl Sweeneys, etc., who maybe that's where maybe we fell a little bit short last year when it came to the closing stretch where we're looking for options. And, then you look down through, you mentioned Owen Kelly, who's injured at the moment, but what we've seen of him so far has been very, very impressive. So Daniel O'Flaherty who's come to the scene. So there's a lot of names. And you mentioned Keane and Jonathan McGrath, a few more like that. Porrick's used a lot of players in this National League. He's blooded a lot of players, and to a man, they've all stood up nearly, and they've all put their hand up to say, I'm in the mix here and I want to be considered for championships. So Porrick has, he's got a nice headache in the sense that he has far more options, a lot more options than what he had this time last year.
Just on that, Joey, but my main concern for the league was, and luckily it seems we've got over it, was that we were depending on Sean Kelly and John Daly, Killian to an extent, and Paul Conroy. That spine there from midfield back, and they're brilliant players, but they really are nearly non-negotiable, in a way. So look at I was fearful that all these games would be tough on them, but luckily they all have come through and they're getting better, so fingers crossed it continues.
No, absolutely. I suppose the one you'd pick out there is Sean Kelly, who's had a very long club season as well, but obviously don't know Sean that well myself or anything, but he just seems like a complete and utter thoroughbred. He's an athlete and he just seems to keep going and going, but he's played a lot of football and you would be conscious of that. John obviously took a knock. Like John is pivotal there at 6. Took a knock near the end. Now, don't like to see John getting, whether I thought it was the knee initially, but I'm told it's not. So, but those guys are crucial, But even you look back at some of the players from last year, Matthew Tierney, he's a different player this year. Like the confidence. And that's what we need.
Is that where Matthew Tierney has stepped up nearly? Because there's probably no other choice in one way. Shane was gone, Damien was gone, that he thrives just being the main man up front.
Yeah, I think somebody touched on it on the TV the last day. Obviously, he was taking the frees in the first half into that strong wind, as we said, and they didn't go well. But they were difficult frees, to be fair. But then Shane took one of them near the end, I think, closer in goals. And you kind of wonder at times, does he want the mantle? Does he want the responsibility of those frees, which might bring him into the game a bit more? But he could be one of those types of players. The more responsibility you give him, the more he'll thrive. But I've even noticed his development, even in 12 months, like he's seriously conditioned now.
He's a great free taker, in fairness, lads. Remember the Sean O'Shea kick everyone was raving about? Yeah. I was joking that we had two lads who do the same kick in Shane Walsh and Matthew Tierney. Maybe not like that was a famous kick. Don't get me wrong, but we definitely have serious firepower in Matthew and Shaney.
And he's coming up with big scores now. Like obviously the goal the last day, he got some big scores against Donegal. So that's what we lacked. Unfortunately, we were a couple of minutes away from, we're level peg in the All-Ireland final, and we just didn't have enough players taking shots at goal. And I think the one thing Porrick certainly has this time around is, he's got a lot more firepower. So hopefully that bodes well.
Yeah, Porrick referenced after the game that he was only able actually to tog 24 players going up to Armagh. Made it a total anyways of 7 players that were missing when you Owen Kelly, Neil Mulcahy, Jack Glynn, Killian McDade, Ian Burke, Peter Cook, and Damien Comer. That's when your squad's like really put to the mantle, going up to Armagh, Paddy's weekend, Declan, 24 lads to talk. There was obviously more injuries, but they weren't named or anything as well.
Yeah, like from our own days, I remember going up to Armagh to cross McGlynn and back in the early 2000s, and it was always a tough place to go. So we kind of broke even with them 50-50, but this current team seems to have the measure of Armagh in league and championship anyway in the last number of years. So that's great to see. Look, the likes of those trips, when you win them, they really galvanise the team and you know, can be a great tonic for the lads, just for a confidence booster and a team building exercise as well. So look, I think Pádraig and the lads are believing the team having enjoying each other's company and that, so I'm sure they got a little bit of or they will at least get a little bit of downtime as well to build up a bit of team camaraderie. But look, they're going well, and just it'd be interesting to see what happens at the weekend now against Kerry in the final game, you know.
Tom O'Cullan as well, Declan, he struggled with injury this year, getting back to full fitness, got an injury in the Sigerson Cup, but he's really worked his way back to fitness and now, and the composure to come on and kick 2 marks when it's a tight contest like that, that's just like, that's really impressive.
It's really impressive, you're right, and it's something really I think Galway could work on, is that ability to win marks and kick scores. You know, you can get over the blanket defense if you have a good ball winner in there and winning the marks in, and like definitely we have the shooters to kick frees and points and from those positions inside the 21 or, you know, in that area. Look at Tomo. We forget he was a real leader himself for the Galway minors and under 20 squad. So like he's just coming of age now, and he should slot into a forward role there somewhere, definitely in the future with Galway. So look at, he's putting his hand up, literally. Fair play to him. So look at, I think he definitely did himself no harm with his performance, and it was great to see.
Joe, on the 2 goals, the Armagh goal in the first half, it's hard to know, did Kieran Mackin impede a bit with Conor Gleeson there? Then Galway probably get a fortunate goal where Shane Walsh probably ultimately going for a point, it drops in, Rafferty comes out, Tierney kind of punches it over Rafferty and then just has to kick it into an empty net. And then after that, the chaos of Armagh going and trying to work this goal. I suppose it wasn't really the best game, but the last 5-10 minutes you were nearly off your seat because you didn't really know what was going to happen.
Yeah, it kind of took it kind of took a life of its own in the last few minutes. Yeah, and those 2 goals, look, messy, I suppose, is the only way you can really describe them from both sides. You know, there is an argument to say that Mackin did impede Gleeson. I think it's something that Pádraig and the team, obviously we've seen it before last year. It's something that they need to work on. And it's not just the keeper's responsibility. I think protection in that small square, you know, full back line need to be stopping those runners coming in on top of the keeper, etc. So yeah, that's something I'm sure they're looking at. And yeah, look, I suppose when a team, you talk about and in fairness to Gleeson, pulled off a great save at the end to deny them getting a last minute goal. So. But I suppose, look, teams have to throw the kitchen sink at it at that stage. They've nothing to lose. Point is not going to do them any good. And, you know, it does become a bit frantic and a bit chaotic. And you see that a lot, you know. But let's go back to what Decky was saying earlier, you know. Galway's defence has been very resilient over the league, you know. And I think if they could just work on some of that high ball scenario, try and protect the keeper a little bit better, you know, they're well set up going forward.
Just on that, sorry, Paul. I think Conor is doing really well. In fairness to him, like in the latter stage of last year, but definitely in the league so far, he's improving all the time. And I think he really is. They're obviously working hard on certain aspects, but look, he finished strong. His kickouts are good, and you couldn't really fault him for the goal. I think he was impeded, as Joe said.
With that as well, it was a big save to make because. Really, Joey has probably received a bit of stick within Galway, and it's probably not fair in certain aspects. It's probably just an easy cop-out to, I I suppose, go towards and blame the keeper straight away. But for Connor to make that save, like it's huge for his confidence.
It is, absolutely. Like, don't underestimate it. It was a huge save. But we were beaten if he didn't pull that save off, so he got out and he got big. He's a big guy, but he made himself bigger and blocked it, So, but yeah, it is. Look, at no position more than that. Any other position in the field, goalkeeper, you can't be lacking confidence. It's huge. You can't be second guessing yourself because any small mistake, and ultimately it's a big mistake. It's compounded because it ends up in the back of the net. But I think overall, I feel like he's developing well, and that will give him confidence. And I think the fact that the people closest to him, or the management team, they have full faith in him. They continue to pick him day in, day out, and it's good to see that consistency, because you don't want to see your keeper being chopped and changed too often. So I think that, together with how he's been performing over the last while, should give him real confidence, and because maybe of last year's game against Armagh probably brought the goal last week maybe a bit more into the spotlight. But as I said, I definitely felt he was impeded. But yeah, I think just that piece where communication between full back line and goalkeeper, where when the ball is coming in the air, that he knows he's got the square to go out and win that ball or punch it away. But overall, I come back to Decky's point. I agree. I think, look, you have to give him credit.
Just with that, Joe, you mentioned John Daly coming off at the end. Hopefully it's not too serious and he can play a part this weekend. But last year, even when we were talking in the lead up to the All-Ireland final, we were just saying how terrific it was to see John Daly fit after, I suppose, his injuries at such a young age. But now for John Daly to be ultimately turning into one of the top defenders in the inter-county game at the moment, I presume as a club man you're looking on nearly in awe of him.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely very proud of him, in fairness, and his development, particularly over the last number of years, has been massive. He really is. He's a key player. Like, he's one of Galway's most important players. He holds that number 6 position extremely well. Look, John obviously had his injury troubles at a young age, but I think it's a reflection of him. Like, he's an extremely determined individual, and to get over those knee injuries that he had and come back and to be the player he is today, but as I said, he's made a tough stuff, and he's a smart footballer. He reads the game extremely well, and to add to that, then he's a great reader of the game. But he's got a fantastic boot in him. He's able to distribute the ball and get that ball out of defence quickly. So he's a massive player for us. That's why when I saw him go down the last day, and it was kind of an innocuous one where kind of the leg got kind of half caught underneath him and whatnot, and you're going, oh God, I hope nothing happens to him, because we talk about the strength and depth of the panel and whatnot, and all these extra names coming in and doing really, really well. But I wouldn't like to be going into a big championship game without John Daly at centre back.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a chip off the old block, really. I'm old enough to have played with his dad, and like, he was brilliant. But like, as a number 6, he could even play there. He was a forward for Galway, but he was a class footballer, and it's not from the ground he licked it, as they say.
Yeah, no, he really sets those standards in defence, particularly for Galway. Just before we do get into Galway Kerry and what this means now, obviously there's a league final as a possibility. Do you have any particular memory, Declan, of coming up against Joe at club football?
Coming up against Joe?
Yeah.
He only has good memories.
No, I don't. Look, would you believe, like, I'm 5 foot nothing and he's 6 foot, whatever. But when you started off, Joe, you were coming on wing forward from Montpellier, and I was wing back or thereabouts for Caltech. So we were even pitted against each other on a few occasions. So I'd be just kind of trying to hold him or foul him before the ball came near us, on the kickouts, especially because it was an obvious target. I don't know. Look at thankfully that didn't go on for too long. Joey was a midfielder or a centre forward, I suppose. But we'd a healthy rivalry, Joey, Caltech and Montpellier, and it was to say the least. Unfortunately, now we're trailing in your wake, the Montpellier culture thing. But look, we'll try and make up the ground, I'm sure.
Joe, how would you stop this man from running up the pitch?
I wouldn't try, to be honest. Sure, look, no, I'd go back to it. We had some right ding dong battles back in the kind of the mid noughties, and Caltra was going very, very well, going very, very strong. Obviously went on to win the All Ireland club, but I think we would have played each other a couple of years there, Decky. We would have played each other in county semi-finals and whatnot, and I think one even went to a replay or whatever the case would be. So we had some real good games, Unfortunately, often not, we came out on the wrong side of it. But you should look at Decky's strengths, obviously, former footballer of the year, like the engine he had, but not just the engine he had, the pace he had as well. Sure, there's no point in me trying to chase him, So, but yeah, no, look at it. They were good times.
Yeah.
Do you miss intercounty football, Declan?
I'm long enough finished it now anyway. I missed it initially, of course, but look, there's other stuff which takes over. I suppose in the initial period, a few years you would, but thankfully I was in full health, or I suppose in physical condition to play with the club for a number of years, and I really enjoyed that. I think I played it long enough, and I got great reward and enjoyment out of it. So I've I think I don't miss it. I don't miss it now anyway. I wouldn't be able for it, and the commitment levels are gone through the roof now. So I don't know if I'd even fit the bill under the current regime.
Do you miss it, Joe?
I don't know. I think life has moved on. Obviously, you'd love to be still involved in some, but look, the big days are great, playing the big matches. But go back to what Decky said there, the effort these guys are putting in now, like I've been talking to a few of the players, and the time that they're putting into it is phenomenal, So do I miss it? Not really, to be honest. Not really overall. Like, you have an idea of the effort that they're putting on in the background. I suppose maybe it's the sign that we're getting older, but it's a young man's game. There's no doubt about that. As I said, life has moved on for us all, and our commitments are different now. But thoroughly enjoyed it when we were there. We had the ups, we had a lot of downs as well. But I love going to the games now. I love watching the lads playing, etc. And I suppose there was a time there when I kind of retired where I missed it initially, but kind of the style of the game and the way the game was played as well, found it hard to get my head around it. And a lot of times I'd be coming out of the stadium or whatever saying, "Jake, I'm glad I'm not playing that football now," because I think in our day, Deck, it was kind of a bit more, free spirited in the sense that you go have a cut and you could go down, you could kick a ball from out the field or whatever. But now, particularly in the last number of years, it's all about ball retention and over and back the field and patience and, and 14, 15 players behind the ball. So that wasn't around in our day, thank God,
Yeah, that's a subject for another day, Joey.
We had the likes of Paul Clancy kicking the ball over his head and onto Decky for goals in All Ireland finals, so you wouldn't see that today.
No.
And just with Galway Kerry this weekend, Galway are obviously going to say that this is a new year and everything, but Kerry defeated Galway last year in the All-Ireland final. Apart from Stephen Ockenberg and Darragh Roach, Kerry ultimately look at full strength this weekend. Obviously, David Moore has retired since. Does that defeat play motivation for Galway this weekend, Declan?
I suppose as the players and the management, they're all very competitive, So you always want to lay down a marker, and it's always nice to say we can beat Kerry on our day. We can beat Kerry, or So it'd be nice to get one over them in that regard. But having said that, it's interesting that it's the last game of the league and Galway are safe. And do they want to get to a league final? Probably they do. I know most players would like to have a league medal, but there's so many permutations with the way the championship is so condensed, and you don't have much of a break off. Obviously, then you're playing Mayo. I've no idea. I'd say the message will be go out and enjoy the game and win the game, and don't think about anything else. So, if they don't win, it won't be the end of the world. I think they'll, as Joe said, coming back from Armagh, they were happy that they had secured Division 1 status, and probably they would have liked to have done it earlier in the campaign, but look, we got there anyway. So I don't know. What do you think, Joey, about Sunday?
Yeah, I think on Sunday, I think ultimately they'll want to win it. I think this is where the team is at. You look at this, going back through the names, there's a lot of lads chomping at the bit, even from a selfish perspective. They want to be on that team come championship. And I know there's a strong, if we win on Sunday, we will be playing Mayo in a league final. But I think it's 4 weeks Sunday to championship for us. Mayo, Roscommon have to play first, obviously. Ideally, you would have preferred if somebody else was in a league final. Yeah. But I think from Pádraig's mindset, every game you go out, you want to win. And I think from the players' mindset, I think every game they're in a winning habit now. They'll want to get one over Kerry, even though it's not going to make up for last year or whatever. But I just think, going back to it again, the Tom O'Culhans, the John Mahers, the Cathal Sweeneys, the Matthew Tierney's, etc., the Daniel O'Flaherty's, all these guys, they're not going to take the foot off the gas if they get a chance on Sunday, because it's their last chance, last competitive game before they play championship. So they'll be going full throttle. Sean Fitzgerald, Keane Hearn, all these guys.
Good point, yeah.
So I think, there's a lot of talk out there. Do we want to get to a league final? Do we want to be meeting Mayo? I think we want to beat Kerry. That's the way the players will be looking at it. They'll deal with the league final after that, see what the result is after Sunday.
Is it a chance as well, Joe, to kind of issue a statement to Kerry?
Possibly, because you won't get fooled by beating them in a league game either. If we get them down the track, it'll be a different ball game. But yeah, I think Kerry are well within this Galway team's measure. I haven't seen an awful lot of Kerry. I saw them against Roscommon at the weekend. They weren't overly impressive. But I think there's no harm laying down a little bit of a marker to say, go. We're not going away. We're if Anthem, we're stronger, and we're going to be thereabouts. But I think it's more than Kerry. I think Mayo are coming back into this. This is going to be a very even championship. There's a lot of teams that the Dublin has come back into the pack, as we've seen over the last year or two. Kerry are there. They're not going to be the dynasty that people were saying. Are they going to dominate the championship for the next number of years like Dublin have previously? I don't believe that. And then you've got the likes of Galway, who were there last year. Derry are very strong. Mayo are coming well. Again, they have lots of options. A bit like Galway, they seem to be getting lots of options, even on the bench, strong bench, etc., and seem to be playing a good style of football. So I think it's, as it goes back to what I said already, each game as it comes, these players will just want to keep winning and putting their hands up for selection.
Ultimately, if Galway win, they'll find themselves in a league final. I think if they draw as well, it will be significant to get them in a league final. Then if they lose, Kerry win, Tyrone could win, Roscommon could win, then it all comes into the equation. Then goal difference comes into the equation. And I would try to explain it, but I'll probably explain it wrong, and someone will try and say something. So I'm not going to bother. But Declan, a league final possibility, you were saying there it's not the end of the world if we lose this, and by no means it's not. Safety would have been the first goal. But with that, for this group to get to a league final and, as we said, to beat Kerry, it would be significant progress.
Oh, geez, it would, and it's, don't get me wrong, it's not a burden to carry if your league champions going into the All Ireland series. It's not a burden to carry whatsoever. I think the way the year is condensed, particularly that it's all done and dusted by July. So look at it would be a bonus probably for all this squad who are relatively new to senior football, the majority of them. So it would be a great boost if we were to get to a league final and if we were to win it. And like in doing so, you'd be rocking back two of our biggest rivals in Kerry and Mayo. So look at that's all probably well calculated and in the mindset of the lads as well. Like as Joey said, all these guys like Cathal Sweeney, who've been very good in the league, want to cement their place in the championship setup, and that's that's what they're going to do, and that means putting in a big performance in Salt Hill. And Kerry are slightly different because they started the league slow, and against Roscommon they weren't too hectic, so they haven't really found the groove yet. Look, they're after winning All Ireland, so that brings its own baggage. But and they don't really have to worry about things as early as we do in Connacht. I think they have a bit more straightforward in the Munster Championship. So look at Jack O'Connor is very calculating as well. He won't be too worried if Galway were to beat them, he'll use it as a motivation, and if Galway were to lose to them, he'll use that as a motivation. So look at it's just very interesting times ahead,
And obviously, with that, both teams kind of have similar championship patterns. I think is it Kerry play Tipperary or Waterford. Galway then have a bye, so they won't be out straight away. So both teams' championship games are a bit away yet. So I'm sure a league final and an extra game wouldn't do any side no harm heading into championship. But Joe, there has to be a real excitement here. Two teams going for a league final place, and like from what we've seen last year in the final, even the thought of getting to see David Clifford now in Pearse Stadium this weekend, like it already has people excited heading into the clash this weekend.
Oh, it does indeed. It does indeed. Galway Kerry always brings that little bit of extra flair about it. But yeah, final game in the league. I always kind of say, first couple of rounds of the league, you just don't know where teams are at. Last three, 4 rounds of the league, teams are really beginning to come to the fore. Like, so I'm expecting a ding-dong battle on Sunday. And obviously, as we say, the marquee man himself, David Clifford, is in town, so that will draw a crowd big time. And you're going to have David Clifford on one side, you're going to have Shane Walsh on the other side. So it's a very attractive tie, and it'll be very interesting to see because both teams will be going hard at it. Like, how many times have we seen the league champions going on to win the All Ireland? It happens quite regularly. So Kerry will be going hard to that point that you made earlier on to try and get into a league final now, and as I do think Galway will as well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the game on Sunday.
And interesting as well, Declan, to note now, like if a couple of these injuries clear up, what kind of direction will Port take? Because like that team did business for him last week in Armagh. Does he stick with them again this weekend? Does he bring back in some of the players who were injured, or does he have them held in reserve for impact?
Yeah, that's true. I definitely he won't be risking anyone with an injury question mark. I would imagine. There's no need to do that at this stage. But I'm sure all the lads will be eager to put their hand up and get the jersey and tug out and play. But he's in a nice position that he has fellas coming back into fitness and then fellas who've been holding the forts that are playing very well. So look, there's tough times ahead in terms of team selection and squad selection. But no, that's all to play for.
Yeah, like I think the big calls there are like the likes of the John Daly's of this world. Picked up an injury last week. Has he fully recovered? Do you play him again this weekend? And then I'm not too sure Peter Cook, is he out of suspension or not? Then you've got the likes of Damien Comer. We hear he's getting close to being back fit. Do you give those guys a bit of a run out? So yeah, they're the big decisions that need to be made. Sean Kelly has had a long season, but I get the feeling Sean Kelly doesn't want to rest. Just wants to play. So, but look, I think that kind of gives Porrick. It's a nice place to be for Porrick, to be fair, to have those options and those choices to make at this stage.
Yeah.
You probably would expect, going on the players who came in the last day, Declan, like particularly now Robert Finnerty and Tom O'Callaghan. That seems to be the way Porrick has been. Like, if you have made an impact and contribute, you probably do get your starting place from the start the next day. They're probably two players now that you would expect to start on Sunday.
Yeah, I look at any player that can kick a point from in the current game from 30 or 40 yards is worth his weight in gold. So like, that's definitely, I'd imagine, to the high a big tick on the criteria in Porrick's selection process. So if you're kicking points, that's a big one. And I think the two lads are well able to do that. It's difficult to say. I wouldn't like to pick the team for him now, but we'll have to wait and see if Rob and both Tom will get the start. I'd say one or the other will, but he mightn't go for both,
Joe, as well, a player who we forgot to mention was out through injury as well. He's probably getting his best run of it this year, and just unfortunate for Owen Finnerty to pick up that hand injury. He still seems to be out for a while.
Yeah, I was chatting to Owen there last week. He picked up a hand injury against, I think it was Tyrone and Tuam, broke a bone in the hand. I know he got his start against Roscommon. Unfortunately, didn't go well for the team as a whole that day. Galway were extremely flat. I don't know whether the bad injury, what we thought was a very bad injury to Damien early in the game, kind of put them off their kilter or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately for Owen, then got a start against Tyrone, broke the hand and has been out. And I think he's still in cast. I don't know how far away he is from getting back, but he's a guy that came on obviously in the All-Ireland final last year, has got a couple of chances this year, but injury setting him back now is not ideal, particularly with so many players knocking on the door now, so it'll be difficult for him to get back up that ladder, but knowing Owen as I do, he's a great lad, and he's really professional about his approach to football, etc. So he'll be doing everything he can to get back as quickly as he can,
And just to finish, lads, final predictions for the weekend ahead. Declan, coming to you, do you expect Galway to pull off a result this weekend?
God, it's a good one. It's going to be very, very, it should be a very close game. As it'll come down to a few of those things, like maybe John Daly being fit to play, or do the management take a decision to rest a few of the key guys that have been, like Sean Kelly or Paul Conroy? I'm not saying they will, but it could come down to something like that. You don't know how Kerry are going to travel as well. So on balance, having listened to Joey speak earlier now, I'd say I'll give it to Galway by a small margin, just because, well, number one, home advantage is a big factor, but two, those guys he mentioned, the John Mahers and Cathal Sweeney and all those new guys will want to finish on a high, and that's the type of fellas they are. So yeah, maybe Galway by one or two.
And Joe?
Yeah, I'd be fairly confident going into the weekend. Looking at our previous games in Pearse Stadium, Roscommon, we were very poor. I think everybody will agree with that. A lot of people scratching their head coming out of the stadium that day going, what was that? But Monaghan the last time, first half wasn't great, but second half really, really strong. But I think this has got the feel of a very big game about it. Kerry coming to town, replay of the All-Ireland final last year. So I think Galway, on the back of Armagh result last week, I thought Kerry stuttered a small bit against Roscommon last week in Tralee, and but it has the makings of a real. I agree with Declan. I think it has the makings of a real good game. But I do fancy Galway to come out on top, maybe with home advantage.
Yeah, here's hoping that Galway can pull off a victory this weekend against Kerry and get themselves into a league final. That's all on our show for today. Thanks to Joe Bergin and Declan Meehan for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Paul.
This podcast is sponsored by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway, supplying a wide variety of new and used vehicles. steedemotorgroup.ie, taking the work out of car shopping. We are now delighted to announce our second sponsor of the podcast. Harper Finlay are a professional service recruitment company operating nationwide and are dedicated to helping people find their dream job.